The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Second Book. Letter of BELICENA VILLCA. 21st Day. The urgency of the times had obeyed the Cathars to expose themselves openly, act that would cause, earlier or later, the inevitable attack of the Catholic Church. The Benedictines, the Uniac, and Cistercians started very soon to elevate their protests. Already in 1119, the year when the Gelms were installed, in the Temple of Solomon, the Pope Calixtus II fulminates the excommunication against the heretics of Telesa. But such measures didn't take any effect. In 1147, the abbot of Clairvaux, Saint Bernard, the lean chief of the Templar conspiracy, travelled around the Languedoc, receiving in every part signs of hostility by the people and the lordly nobility. Thence will be the citers that will be in charge to enliven the hates and form the new procureurs to destroy the Excitan dragon. But the Cathars, far of being daunted by those threats, convoked in 116/7 the General Council of St. Felix de Caraman. There they resolved to apportion the country, in the same manner to the Catholic Church, in bishoprics and parishes. The Cathar Church was organized in base of bishoprics, presbyters, deacons, major brothers, minor brothers, etc., and gave superficial arguments to those that sustained the accusation of heresy. However, from the inner perspective, existed only two groups: the believers and the chosen ones. The believers constituted the mass of those who sympathized with Catharism, or professed its faith, but without reaching the initiation of the Holy Spirit that characterized the chosen ones. These last ones, instead, had been purified by the Holy Spirit, and due to this the believers called them pure, that's to say, Cathars. It will be necessary to clarify that the initiation in the Cathar mystery, being still a social act as every initiation, was differentiated from the initiations to the ancient mysteries, that in the ritual form was reduced to the minimum. In fact, the Cathars, the pure men or initiates, had the power to communicate the Holy Spirit to the believers through the laying on of hands, with which he could become a Cathar, as well. To make possible that such miracle occurs was necessary to dispose of an Hyperborean chamber, in which the believer was situated and received the consolamentum of hands by the pure men. But the Hyperborean chamber was not a material construction, as the temples of the Gelms, but a concept of the Hyperborean wisdom of the White Atlantans, which realization constituted a jealously guarded secret by the Cathars. For clarification, Dr. Setonal, I will tell that it consisted in the same principles that I already explained, in the third day, as fundamentals of the strategic mode of life, that is, the principle of the occupation of the enclosure, and the principle of the strategic wall. In the concept of the Hyperborean chamber, intervenes the three mentioned principles, and its realization could be effectuated in any place, although, I repeat, the lithic technique, that just required of the spatial distribution of some few not carved stones, was secret. Thereby, with just a few stones in their hands, the Cathars initiated the believers in the mystery of the uncreated spirit. And as real representatives of the pact of blood, they opposed in this way the wisdom to the cult, the strategic wall to the temple. But, if the ritual form was minimum, the consequent spiritual process reached its highest intensity during the Cathar initiation. The believer was consoled, internally, that is to say, he was sustained by the Spirit, and converted and chosen one. But, chosen by who? By himself. Because, the Cathar initiates are convoked by themselves to liberate their spirits, those who have chosen themselves to reach the origin and exist. The believers would not be chosen by the Cathars, neither their transmutation would depend just from the consolamentum, but their own spirit was chosen by itself, and invested of purity when situating strategically under the charismatic influence of the pure men. The Cathar Church lacked of rituals, temples, and sacraments. The Cathars only allowed themselves the preaching, the exposition of the gospel of Christus Cibel, to every believer. and resulted that the indefatigable preaching extended the Catholicism every day, as an epidemic, through the country of Languedoc, causing the consequent alarm of the Catholic Church, whose temples were empty and their priests despised and aggrieved. The pure men attributed the success to the proximity of the historical moment, in which would appear the Grail. But, what in a beginning, was just conviction, one day, when the Catholicism was in the zenith of the popular adhesion, it turned defective reality. In the late 12th century, many pure men are short to have seen physically the Grail, and received its transmutation power. In the county of Foix, in Middle Pyrenean region, was located the seigneury of Raymond of Prilly, which included, apart from castles, villages, and cultivation fields, a mountain peak very abrupt in which summit existed an ancient fortress in ruins. The name of such place was Montsegur, and the lord, as well as all his family and subordinates, were counted amongst the believers of the Catholic Church. In the year 1202, the pure men solicited to Raymond de Prilly the construction in Montsegur, of an strange stone building of pentagonal asymmetric form, improper for the defencer, inadequate and well, aesthetically shocking. The work was conceived, however, according to the highest Hyperborean strategy. Its function had nothing to do with the defencer, the dwelling, or the beauty, but with the Grail, with the physical manifestation of the Grail. Montsegur would be a reference area, from where the initiates could localize the Grail, or, inclusive, to approach physically to it. Its function not consisted then, in to serve, as deposit to guard, the Grail, due to the Grail, can't be inside or outside of anything. As the spirit, eternal and infinite, the reality of the Grail is, beyond the origin. But, to localize the origin, meant the liberation of the incarcerated spirit to the matter, and to facilitate such localization, the Grail approaches to the asleep men. And Montsegur would be then, the strategic wall from where the Grail would be seen, would be found the orientation towards the origin, the spirit would be rediscovered to itself and the voice of the pure blood would be listened again. And the Grail would speak and reveal to the white race the identity of the king of the pure blood, the universal emperor. In sum, Doctor, from Montsegur the Grail, as stone, could be found and taken by the pure men. But, while remaining in the strategic wall, the Grail would not be inside but out of Montsegur, because the technique of the referential fenced area demands it. Instead, once taken outside, could be transported, if it is desired, to any other site, because the reference would be conserved, while the fenced referential area and the initiates who operate it exist. Naturally, the Grail can be localized always, from any place that constitutes a liberated area in the space of the demiurge, an occupied area to the potencies of the matter, according to the techniques of the Hyperborean wisdom of the White Atlantans, a site where the illusion of the Great Deceit would not be acting. Yes, Doctor. From such strategic area, in every place, the Hyperborean initiates, being wise warriors, men of stone, or pure men, could find the Grail of Christus Lucifer, whenever they wish. But, will not be necessary to insist on it. The constructed strategic walls would not be neither similar to the ones of Montsegur, due to the inconstant distribution of the matter in the universal space obeys to change duly the form of the employed strategy. As I wrote 2 days ago, when Innocent III takes the control of the Vatican, in the year 1198, the plans of the White Fraternity were almost accomplished. And in those plans figured, as a pending issue to which should be given a prompt solution, the fulfillment of the extermination sentence that existed over the Cathars. In principle, Innocent III sent special legacies to travel around the country of Eck, while they initiated a maneuver destined to submit the King of Aragon, Peter II, to the vassalage of St. Peter, what he achieved in 1204. In that year Peter II was crowned in Rome by the Pope, who gave him the regalia, pallium, tunic, scepter, orb, crown and mitre. Thereupon, he demanded him oath of loyalty and obedience to the pontiff, of defense of the Catholic faith, of the ecclesiastical Catholic rites, in all his lands and seigniories, and to combat unto death the heresy. Peter II accepted all, who who not suspected his sad end in hands of the Cistercians, and, after receiving the knight's sword, in hands of Innocent III, gives his kingdom to Saint Peter, the Pope, and his successors. To all this, the legacies had already alerted the loyal bishops, to the Ghelams, and effectuated a prolix census, of the Edictfongers prelates, that they would never approve the destruction of the civilization of Eck, and that they would have to be expurgated, from the church. In 1202, the Ghelams considered that the conditions were given to execute their plans, and decided to tender a mortal trap, to the Earl of Talisker, Raymond VI. The mechanism of this trap aims to give a justification to the imminent destruction of the civilization of Eck, and the Cathar extermination. And the artifice, idle to deceive the prey, was a propitiatory victim, a Cistercian monk, of the Friendfried Abbey, called Peter of Peer, of Castellnor. Such sinister personage, was well prepared to the function that would have to perform, unknowing, of course, because he stood out in matters such as the cruelty, the fanaticism, the hate against the heresy, etc. And, to maximize his reckless and intolerant action, he was gifted of special powers, that placed him above any ecclesiastical authority except for the Pope, and was ordained to inquire about the faith of the Excitan. In only 6 years Peter of Castellnor was murdered by the own Ghelams, and the responsibility of the crime fell upon the Earl of Talisker. The trap was closed. The response of Innocent III, to the murder of his legacy, would be the proclamation of a sane crusade against the Excitan heretics. Logically, the appeal of such crusade was entrusted to the Cistercian order, inheritor of the region that the Romans denominated Gallia Narbonensis, and Charlemagne, Gothic Gallia. The Languedoc constituted a huge country of 40,000 square kilometers, that confined with the Kingdom of France, in the east, with the shore of the Rhone, and in the north, with Ferret, Auvergne, Rouen and Quercy. In the 13th century, such country was made according to the law of sovereignty, of the King Aragon. Amongst the most important seigneuries was the Duchy of Narbonne, the counties of Talisker, Foix, and Bern, the viscounties of Carcassonne, Béziers, Rhodes, Lussac, Albi, Nemours, etc. Apart from these vassals, Peter II had inherited the states of Catalonia, and the counties of Roussillon and Palais, and had rights over the county of Provence. But, no all ended there. Peter II, whose sister was the wife of the Emperor Frederick II Oehensdorfen, had married his two daughters with the Counts of Talisker, Raymond VI, and Raymond VII, father and son, and corresponds him, for his own marriage with Maria, of Montpellier, rights over such county of the Languedoc. Hence, the compromise of King Aragon, with the countries of Eck, could not be major. The Cistercians called to the crusade, in all Europe, after the death Peter de Castellnor, that was, since 1208. In July of 1209, the largest army ever seen in those lands, crossed the Rhone, and marched towards the country of Eck. As chief of the same, Innocent III, named de Guilhem, who seemed to have emerged from the own entrails of hell, Arnaud d'Emeric, abbot of Citos, mother monastery of the Cistercian order. The army of Satan, composed by 350,000 crusaders, promptly found themselves sieging the little fortified city of Béziers. The extermination sentence would be finally accomplished. Hours later, the defenders yielded a gate and the infernal troops are disposed to conquer the area. The military chiefs interrogate Arnaud d'Emeric about the mode to distinguish the heretics from the Catholics, to what the abbot of Citos responded, kill them all. For the Lord knows who are his own. Noble and commoners, women, and children, men, and old men, Catholics, and heretics, the totality of the 30,000 inhabitants of Béziers, were decapitated or burnt in the next moments. The corpse of Béziers is the Eucharistic lamb of the communion of the Crusaders, the sacrament of blood and fire, that constitutes the sacrifice to Creator God One, Jehovah Satan. punishment of the Creator God, sentence of the wide fraternity, sanction of the sword the Atlantans, expiation of the priests, Galeem vengeance, Hebrew lesson, Catholic penance, the slaughter of Beziers, is archetypal. Have been and will be, always, when the populations of pure blood, try to recover their Hyperborean heritage, until the final battle. After Beziers, fell Carcassonne, where 500 heretics were burnt, disposed the Etatfthongas prelates, and when the Viscount Raymond Roger was captured and humiliated. Peter II reached to Carcassonne to intercede for his vassal and friend without obtaining anything of the papal legacy. This impotence gives an idea of the power acquired by the Church in those centuries about the temporal kings. The King Aragon withdrew then, and he concentrates in the other crusade, which is being carried out simultaneously, the struggle against the Muslims of Spain. He believes that, participating from this prowess his honor would not involve, as would be the case, if he intervenes in the repression of his subjects. Nevertheless, the lack of honor was already huge, because he abandoned them in hands of his worst foes. While the Galeem crusade goes exterminating the Cathars, castle by castle, and seeks to destroy the county of Tolosa, Peter II faced with success to the Muslims in the reconquest of Valencia. He returns, finally, to Narbonne, where he gathered with the Cathars counts of Tolosa and Foix, and with the military chief of the crusade, Simon of Montfort, and the papal legacies. Once again, he didn't obtain anything, but this time his Catholic condition is questioned and he was threatened with the excommunication. He ended to accept the indiscriminate repression and confirming the rapine effectuated by Simon. Agrees that, if the counts of Tolosa and Foix not apostatized from the Catharism, those titles would be transferred. Therefore, Peter II believed that the crusade only achieved the end of the heresy, and that his sovereignty over the Languedoc would not be questioned. It is in this way that, as proof of good faith, is arranged the marriage of his son, James, with the daughter of Simon of Montfort. But James, the future King of Aragon, James I, the Conqueror, has only 2 years. Peter II gives him to Simon for his education, that is to say, as hostage, and he rushes to situate him behind the walls of Carcassonne. Then, Peter II joined in the fight against the Almohads with the King of Castile Alfonso VIII, and remained 2 years dedicated to the reconquest of Spain. After complying a prominent role in the Battle of Les Navas of Tolosa, he returned to Aragon, where the joyless surprise that the Crusaders of Christ have distributed his lands, and threatened to request the protection of the King of France. Arnaud d'Emeric, the abbot of Citos, is now Duke of Narbonne, and Simon de Montfort Count of Tolosa. Ends 1212, when Peter II claims to Innocent III, by the action of the open conquest that the Crusaders are carrying out in his country. The Pope tries to entertain him to give time for the Galems to complete the annihilation of the Catharism and the destruction of the civilization of Ek, but, before the insistence of Monarch of Aragon, he ends to show his real game and excommunicates him. So, Innocent III, who in 1204 crowned him and named Geneloni, that is to say, Major Alfred, of the Church, now considered that he was also a heretic. But would be a naivety that the Galems, only interested to accomplish the satanic plans of the wide fraternity, would have acted in a different mode. Suddenly Peter II understands all and marches with an improvised army to succor Raymond VI, in the site of Tolosa, but is too late to fight against the infernal powers, who have lived closing the eyes to the truth, have become weak to sustain the gaze of the great deceiver. Peter II has reacted, but his forces are just enough to die. Is what he did in the Battle of Muret against Simon de Montfort in September of 1213. He died incomprehensibly in the middle of a huge strategic disaster, in which results destroyed the army of Aragon and definitively buried the last hope of the Occitan Cathar.